Have you noticed how the more you chase something, the farther it seems to move away? You try harder to be happy, and somehow you feel emptier. You push for control, and life becomes chaos. You strive for peace, and end up exhausted. This is the paradox Alan Watts called the backwards law. The idea that the more you try to will something into existence, the more it eludes you. Because life doesn't bend to pressure, it unfolds through presence. You don't get what you chase, you get what you create space for. The more tightly you grip the water, the quicker it slips through your fingers. But when you open your hand, the water stays. The same is true of happiness, success, love, even purpose. They don't respond to force. They arrive when you stop demanding and start aligning. This episode isn't about doing more. It's about unlearning the reflex to force life, to replace frantic striving with calm intention. For centuries, philosophers, mystics, and Stoics alike have tried to teach us that peace doesn't come from dominance over life, but from cooperation with it. What if everything you've been chasing, peace, fulfillment, clarity, is already trying to reach you, but can't because you're too busy forcing? What if stillness, not struggle, is the doorway to everything you've been looking for? Let's explore that. Let's walk through this paradox together to see what happens when you stop trying to control the world and start learning to flow with it. 1. Awakening to the paradox. The harder you try to make life obey you, the more it slips away. That's the first uncomfortable truth of the backwards law. Every human being learns this, often painfully, when they discover that chasing happiness rarely brings it, that trying to control outcomes often creates chaos, and that forcing clarity only makes the mind foggier. You don't get what you chase. You get what you create space for. There's a difference between movement and momentum, between chasing and allowing. When you chase something, you create distance, a psychological signal that says, "I don't have it yet." The more desperate the pursuit, the louder that signal becomes. The universe, life, reality, whatever word you prefer, doesn't respond to neediness. It mirrors your state. The more you strain, the more resistance you feel. The more you force, the less life flows. Alan Watts described this beautifully. When you try to stay on the surface of the water, you sink. But when you try to sink, you float. That's the essence of the paradox. The more you let go, the more buoyant you become. We live in a culture that worships effort, hustle harder, grind every day, never rest. But what if the real mastery of life lies not in adding more pressure, but in releasing it? What if clarity and power emerge not from tension, but from relaxation? Think about it. When do you have your best ideas? Usually not when you're straining for them. They appear when you're walking, showering, staring into space, when you're relaxed, open and receptive. Because inspiration doesn't respond to command. It visits when there's room to land. The paradox becomes clearer when you look at nature. Rivers don't force their flow. They find it. The wind doesn't strive to move. It simply moves. Trees don't struggle to grow. They respond to light. Yet everything in nature accomplishes its purpose with silent precision. Humanity is the only species that believes life must be wrestled into submission. Awakening to the paradox means realizing that the very act of trying too hard is what blocks you. It's not that action is wrong, it's that obsession with outcomes closes your awareness. The mind gets trapped in constant calculation, forgetting that life doesn't unfold through control, but through cooperation. For the next few days, notice where you're forcing things, trying to make people like you, trying to make progress happen faster, trying to control timing, outcomes, perceptions. Then, Experiment with easing your grip. Instead of pushing harder, create space. Breathe. Let things come to you. You'll begin to notice something strange. When you stop demanding, opportunities arise naturally. Conversations align. Ideas connect. Energy flows. This isn't magic. It's alignment. When your inner world is calm, your outer world synchronizes with it. This is the awakening. Realizing that you've been exhausting yourself by swimming upstream when the river was already carrying you. All you had to do was stop fighting it. And once you understand that, truly feel it, a new kind of power appears. A softer, quieter one. The power of awareness over effort. Because life doesn't reward those who force it. It rewards those who are awake enough to see that it was never resisting them in the first place, only waiting for them to stop resisting it. 2. The illusion of control. The human mind is addicted to control. It wants to predict, to manage, to shape every outcome. It believes that if it can just tighten its grip a little more, plan a little harder, anticipate a little faster, then life will finally behave. But control is the sweetest illusion. The more you chase it, the more it dissolves. We confuse control with power. Real power is quiet. It's the ability to stay centered when everything around you spins. Control, on the other hand, is frantic. It's the desperate attempt to rearrange the world so that you don't have to face uncertainty. And yet, uncertainty is the very texture of life. Alan Watts once said, "To resist change, to try to cling to life, is like holding your breath. If you persist, you kill yourself." That's what the mind does when it tries to micromanage reality. It holds its breath. It becomes rigid. And in that rigidity, anxiety grows. Think about how you act when you try too hard to control a conversation, a person, or a project. Your attention narrows, your breathing shortens. You start to anticipate every possibility, to plan every response. But what happens? Mistakes multiply. You miss subtle cues. Your energy drains. The harder you try to make everything perfect, the more tension you create. And that tension blocks flow, intuition, and connection. Control is an illusion because it assumes life is a machine, predictable, programmable, obedient. But life is not a machine. It's an ecosystem. It moves in patterns too vast to manage, in rhythms too complex to dominate. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." That's real control, not over outcomes, but over attitude. Not over events, but over attention. You can't control whether someone loves you. You can't control the economy, the weather, or time. You can't control what people think or say. But you can control how much power you give those things. You can control your response, your presence, your focus. That's the boundary between sanity and madness, knowing where your control ends and your influence begins. When you stop trying to manipulate the future, something interesting happens. You start living in the present. You stop trying to bend time and start aligning with it. Suddenly, moments expand. You begin to see opportunities that were invisible while you were busy worrying. Because control blinds you, it keeps your attention fixed on what should be instead of what is. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start cooperating with reality instead of fighting it. You still act, but your actions come from clarity, not desperation. You still plan, but you hold the plan lightly, ready to adapt when life rearranges it. For the next few days, notice the areas of your life where you're gripping too tightly, where anxiety has replaced trust. Then, loosen the hold. Remind yourself, I don't control outcomes. I control my energy, my awareness, my choices. You'll notice an immediate shift. Anxiety quiets. Your movements become lighter. You start flowing instead of forcing. Because the paradox is this: the less you try to control life, the more influence you actually gain. Why? Because control isn't achieved through tension, it's achieved through alignment. When your inner world stops fighting the outer one, life begins to cooperate. And that brings us to the next realization, that stillness isn't just the absence of movement, it's a kind of force. The moment you stop gripping and start aligning, you begin to see what was invisible before. You begin to act with precision instead of pressure. 3. Stillness is a force, not a pause. When most people hear the word stillness, they imagine inaction, a moment of rest, a blank space between doing. But true stillness is not the absence of movement, it's the presence of alignment. It's not about stopping life. It's about syncing with it. We live in a culture obsessed with motion, endless productivity, constant stimulation, perpetual striving. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. But what if all this noise is the very reason you can't hear the guidance life is giving you? What if stillness isn't idleness at all, but intelligence? The Stoics called it inner citadel, a place within yourself that remains unmoved, even as the world turns. The Taoists called it wu wei, effortless action, the art of doing without forcing. And Alan Watts said it perfectly: muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. Stillness is the moment the water settles, when the mind quiets enough for clarity to rise. It's when the noise fades and the truth, which was always there, becomes visible. But here's the paradox. Most people think they need to find stillness. You don't. Stillness is your natural state. It's the ground beneath the chaos. The problem is, you've layered it with constant thinking, constant reacting, constant effort. You're like a radio picking up static, not because the signal isn't there, but because you won't stop tuning. When you practice stillness, you're not doing nothing. You're doing something far more powerful. You're increasing your signal-to-noise ratio. You're becoming sensitive to leverage points that frantic effort can't see. You're allowing insight to emerge on its own schedule instead of trying to wrestle it into existence. In stillness, you see patterns. You recognize timing. You feel where to act and where to wait. You stop swinging wildly at life and start moving with precision. You stop mistaking motion for progress. It's the same principle great martial artists follow. They don't fight harder. They fight smarter. They conserve energy, observe openings, and strike with efficiency. That efficiency is born from stillness. Without it, every move is wasted. For the next few days, I want you to treat stillness as a discipline. Start your morning with silence. No phone, no noise, just 5 minutes of being present. Watch your breath. Feel your body. Let your thoughts come and go like clouds. You'll notice that stillness doesn't slow you down. It sharpens you. Your focus deepens. Your reactions soften. You stop chasing every impulse and start responding only when it matters. You become magnetic. People sense it. They can feel that you're not rushed, not frantic, and that calm becomes contagious. This is what it means when we say stillness is a force. It's the invisible gravity that pulls things into order. The centered mind organizes reality around it. So stop thinking of stillness as a pause in the action. Think of it as the field in which all action takes shape. The calm beneath the storm, the silence beneath the music, the clarity beneath the chaos. When you act from that stillness, life stops feeling like something you chase. It starts feeling like something you conduct, and every move you make carries the weight of precision, timing, and flow. Because the truth is, the world doesn't respond to those who shout the loudest. It responds to those who are still enough to listen. 4. The observer effect. Shift from actor to watcher. The mind is a stage, full of noise, emotion, and movement. Every day you play dozens of roles: the achiever, the friend, the critic, the dreamer, the warrior. You act, react, perform, defend, and somewhere inside all that acting you forget something essential, that you are not the actor, you are the watcher. This is the shift the Stoics, Buddhists, and mystics all point toward. The moment you stop being consumed by the story and start observing the story. The moment you step out of the performance and realize you've been sitting in the audience all along. Alan Watts once said, "You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." That freedom begins the moment you stop identifying with the constant stream of thought and emotion that passes through you. Because thoughts are not you, they are events, like clouds drifting across the sky of your awareness. They form, they move, they disappear. You are the sky. When you observe without judgment, something subtle but extraordinary happens. The thoughts lose their grip. Craving begins to dissolve. Fear loses its authority, because observation, pure awareness, is not passive. It's transformative. The act of watching a thought without chasing it weakens its momentum. Awareness itself becomes intervention. This is what physicists call the observer effect, the idea that the act of observation changes what is observed. The same principle applies to the mind. The moment you bring conscious awareness to a thought, a craving, or an emotional reaction, it begins to change. It slows, it softens, it becomes visible, and in that visibility, it loses its power to control you. You don't need to fight your emotions. You don't need to suppress your thoughts. You simply need to see them clearly, without labeling them good or bad. Just see them, because the moment you stop struggling with your inner world, you stop feeding the chaos that drives it. For the next few days, practice this. When you feel anger rising, don't rush to justify it. Watch it. When anxiety tightens your chest, don't resist it. Observe it. Ask, what does this feeling want to tell me? Then listen quietly. You'll realize that emotions are just signals, not commands. You'll begin to see that awareness is not an escape from life. It's a way of living more truthfully. When you become the watcher, your decisions stop coming from impulse and start coming from clarity. You no longer act out of habit, fear, or ego. You act from understanding. This is what it means to live consciously, to participate in life without being possessed by it. You move from reacting blindly to responding wisely. You stop being trapped in thought and start using thought as a tool. Over time, this practice builds emotional distance, not disconnection, but space. And in that space, freedom grows. The same freedom that allows you to see anger without becoming it, desire without being enslaved by it, fear without shrinking under it. Marcus Aurelius practiced this every night through reflection. He wrote not to control his mind, but to observe it, to see what it clung to, what it feared, what it desired. That act of gentle observation kept him centered even in the storms of leadership. So remember this: you are not the noise in your head. You are the awareness that hears it. You are not the storm. You are the sky watching it pass. Shift from actor to watcher, from reaction to reflection, from control to clarity. Because when you learn to observe without judgment, you stop being a prisoner of your own performance. And once you master that, Once you can watch your inner world without needing to fix it, the outer world begins to lose its power to shake you. You become calm, deliberate, free. That's the real observer effect. Awareness doesn't remove chaos. It reorganizes it into peace. 5. Want less. Receive more. Desire is a paradox. The more desperately you want something, the further it moves away. You've probably felt it, chasing love only to push it away, forcing creativity only to block it, craving peace only to feel more restless. It's not that desire is wrong, it's that attachment to the outcome poisons the purity of intention. Alan Watts called it the backwards law. The harder you try to feel happy, the less happy you become. The more you struggle to be free from worry, the more you worry about worrying, because intense wanting always carries a hidden message. I don't have it yet. The mind that clings sends a constant signal of lack, and life mirrors that back. Think of desire like a flame. When it burns steady and quiet, it gives light. When it flares wildly, it consumes everything, including you. The goal isn't to stop wanting, it's to want wisely, to shift from craving to clear intention. Wanting something calmly without desperation invites it naturally. You no longer beg life, you collaborate with it. You hold the goal lightly, as if it's already on its way, because in some deeper sense, it is. This is what the Stoics meant by non-attachment. They didn't reject ambition. They rejected the suffering that comes from demanding that the universe move on your schedule. They believed peace comes when you direct your effort, but release your expectation. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." Freedom, in this context, means detaching your happiness from outcomes. You still act, you still care, but your peace no longer depends on how things turn out. You want, but you don't need. Imagine you're holding a butterfly in your hands. If you grip it tightly, you crush it. If you hold it gently, it stays. That's how life works. When you grasp, things slip away. When you relax, they find you. For the next few days, observe your wants. Notice which desires feel light and which feel heavy. The heavy ones are rooted in fear. I need this, or I'll lose myself. The light ones are rooted in purpose. I want this because it's an expression of who I already am. Act on the light ones. Release the heavy ones. This shift changes everything. When you stop broadcasting lack, life stops echoing scarcity. You begin to attract, not chase. Love flows more freely. Opportunities appear. People sense your ease and are drawn to it. Because there's nothing more magnetic than someone who's not desperate. Want less, not because ambition is bad, but because inner peace is better. The moment you release your grip, you create space. And that space is what allows life to flow in. The irony of this law is beautiful. When you finally stop needing what you want, you become ready to receive it. When you stop treating your desires as demands, they start unfolding as invitations. And that's the art of wanting less. It's not about shrinking your dreams. It's about expanding your calm. So hold the vision lightly. Move toward it with grace. Let go of the timeline. Trust the process. Because when your actions come from fullness instead of fear, the things you've been chasing begin to chase you. That's the quiet reward of non-attachment. What once felt out of reach begins to find its way to you, not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped standing in its way. 6. Non-resistance and allowing. Life flows like a river. It bends, it shifts, it carves new paths through the land, and yet most of us spend our lives trying to swim against it. We fight the current, thinking resistance proves strength. But resistance doesn't make you strong, it makes you tired. Non-resistance isn't passivity. It's the art of moving with reality instead of against it. It's saying, I may not control what happens, but I can choose how I meet it. When you stop fighting every wave, you stop drowning in your own expectations. Alan Watts once said, to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. That's the essence of allowing. It's not about giving up. It's about giving in, letting life carry you where it already knows you need to go. Every moment you resist, every "this shouldn't be happening" thought, you're dividing yourself in two. You're saying no to what's already real, and in doing so, you waste the only energy that could actually change it. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacle isn't blocking your path. It is your path. The moment you stop labeling events as enemies and start meeting them as teachers, they transform. Non-resistance doesn't mean apathy. It means awareness. When life pushes, you don't push back blindly. You pivot. You adapt. You let the moment teach you what's required, instead of demanding it conform to your plan. You start treating problems as information, not insults. Imagine you're sailing. The wind changes direction. You can curse it, or you can adjust your sail. One choice drains you, the other carries you forward. That's non-resistance in motion. For the next few days, pay attention to the moments that trigger frustration. Notice how your body tenses when things don't go as planned. Then, instead of fighting that discomfort, breathe into it. Ask, what if this too is helping me? What if this too belongs? The more you practice allowing, the more fluid you become. You stop wasting energy on battles that don't need to be fought. You become adaptive, creative, and calm under pressure. Obstacles stop breaking you because they no longer define you. They refine you. In this state, life becomes lighter. Even difficulty feels different, less like punishment, more like participation. You begin to realize that resistance was never protecting you. It was keeping you stuck. Non-resistance isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the quiet confidence that says, I don't need to control this moment to be at peace in it. And in that peace, paradoxically, you become more effective. Because when you stop fighting reality, reality starts cooperating. Your energy is no longer scattered in opposition. It's focused in harmony. This is the power of allowing, a kind of strength that looks like surrender, but moves like mastery. You stop pushing the river, and suddenly you're moving faster than ever. Not because you're forcing, but because you've learned to flow. 7. Faith over force. There's a quiet strength that comes when you finally stop trying to bend life to your will, when you realize that your greatest power isn't in control, but in trust. Most people live as if the universe is something to be wrestled into submission. They mistake tension for focus, resistance for determination, and anxiety for ambition. But true power doesn't strain. It flows. Faith isn't about closing your eyes and hoping things magically work out. It's about opening your eyes wider, seeing that life has its own intelligence, its own rhythm, its own perfect timing. It's about knowing when to act and when to allow. It's about believing that you are part of something larger than your plans, and that what you need will come, not because you force it, but because you're aligned with it. Alan Watts said, "The attitude of faith is to let go and become open to truth, whatever it might turn out to be." That openness is the opposite of control. It's the willingness to live without guarantees. And yet, ironically, it's what gives you peace. Force is the language of fear. It says, if I don't push, nothing will happen. But faith speaks softly. If I act with clarity and patience, everything necessary will unfold. When you act from force, you create friction, inside and outside. You rush, overthink, and attach your worth to outcomes. Your body tenses, your breath shortens, your mind tightens around expectations. And when the results don't match the plan, frustration grows. Force makes life heavy. Faith, on the other hand, feels light. Not because it's passive, but because it's pure. It's steady direction without emotional bribery or self-threats. You move, not because you're desperate for control, but because movement is your nature. You trust the process because you know your role, to show up, to give your best, and to let life handle the rest. For the next few days, practice replacing force with faith in small ways. When you catch yourself pushing, trying to make someone understand, trying to rush progress, trying to make time move faster, pause, breathe. Whisper to yourself, it's unfolding. Then do only what's clear and necessary. Let the rest go. Notice how the energy shifts. When you release the tension of must, what remains is clean intention, the kind of focus that doesn't exhaust you. Faith collapses in a friction. Suddenly, effort becomes graceful. Work flows. Timing synchronizes. Conversations align. It's not magic. It's alignment. You're no longer trying to dominate life. You're collaborating with it. And that cooperation opens doors you couldn't have forced open if you tried. The Stoics called this inner posture amor fati, love of one's fate. It's not resignation, it's participation. It's saying, I will meet whatever comes with strength, and I will trust that it's leading me where I need to go. That mindset turns obstacles into allies and delays into preparation. Faith over force means choosing calm over panic, trust over control, flow over friction. It's how you stop burning yourself out chasing life and start letting life meet you halfway. Remember this, when you trust the rhythm of things, you become part of that rhythm. Your movements sync with timing, your presence becomes power, and the world, which once felt hostile and chaotic, starts to feel like an intelligent partner, guiding you instead of testing you. So stop gripping the oars for a moment. Let the current show you where it's going. You'll find that life moves smoother when you stop fighting its direction, because what's meant for you doesn't need force. It only needs your faith to arrive. 8. Do less, achieve more. Strategic minimalism. There's a quiet truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You don't need to do more. You need to do what matters. Busyness is not productivity. Noise is not progress. We live in an age where activity has replaced achievement, where motion is mistaken for meaning. But the Stoics, the monks, and the masters of every discipline knew something deeper. That focus, not force, is what moves mountains. Alan Watts once said, "You can't get rid of fear by worrying about it. In the same way, you can't reach clarity by adding more noise." The modern world celebrates multitasking, juggling 1,000 things, and calling it ambition. But the truth is, a scattered mind can't build a steady life. The person who chases 10 priorities ends up exhausted and empty. The one who chooses one and commits fully moves with precision and peace. Doing less doesn't mean you lack drive. It means you've learned discernment. You've stopped trying to touch everything and started touching the right things deeply. Strategic minimalism is the art of recognizing leverage. The few actions that make everything else easier, the 20% that carries 80% of the results. Think about nature again. A tree doesn't grow in every direction. It grows where the light is. That's strategy. That's focus. You must learn to do the same. For the next few days, observe your energy. Notice how much of it is spent on things that don't truly move the needle: scrolling, reacting, managing appearances, over-explaining, over-committing. Then begin subtracting. Ask yourself before every task, is this essential? If not, let it go. You'll feel resistance at first. The ego loves to stay busy because busyness hides fear. Fear of stillness, fear of emptiness, fear of facing yourself. But when you finally stop filling every silence, you begin to hear what your life is actually asking for. You realize that doing less is not laziness, it's precision. The Stoics called this discipline euthymia, a state of inner calm that comes from knowing where you're going and refusing to be distracted by paths that don't lead there. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Strategic minimalism is the antidote to that waste. It's how you transform effort into elegance. Instead of scattering your strength in all directions, you focus it like light through a lens. And that focused light can burn through anything. Ask yourself, what are the few decisive actions that make everything else unnecessary? Focus on them. Automate or delegate the trivial. Remove the performative. Then watch what happens. When you stop chasing everything, you begin to attract the right things. When you stop doing for validation, you start doing for impact. And when you stop trying to prove, you start to improve. Doing less doesn't mean caring less. It means caring correctly. It's the discipline of depth over width, essence over excess. You trade noise for clarity, tension for rhythm, burnout for brilliance. The paradox is simple yet profound. The moment you stop trying to do everything, you start achieving what truly matters. You realize that excellence doesn't come from endless activity, but from consistent alignment. So, simplify. Cut what doesn't serve the mission. Focus where reality is already leaning your way. Because when your energy moves in harmony with what matters, every small step carries the weight of momentum. That's how you do less and accomplish infinitely more. 9. The counterintuitive path to love and wealth. The more you chase love, the less you feel it. The more you chase money, the further it runs. That's not just poetic, it's psychological. Desperation carries a frequency. When you approach anything from fear or need, you broadcast lack, and life, being the mirror that it is, reflects it back to you. Love and wealth, two of the most desired experiences in human life, both follow the same paradox. They cannot be forced. You can pursue them, but not from emptiness, because both are drawn to fullness, to wholeness, to confidence, to calm energy that says, "I am already enough." Alan Watts once said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. That same panic is what poisons our pursuit of love and wealth. We treat both like distant prizes, when in truth they are natural outcomes of alignment, of being who we are without grasping. Let's start with love. You can't force someone to love you. You can't make yourself lovable by performing, pleasing, or pretending. Real connection happens when you stop performing altogether, when you show up grounded, authentic, whole. The irony is that people are drawn most to those who don't need to be chosen, because neediness repels, wholeness attracts. Love grows not through chasing, but through allowing, through being so centered in your own peace that others can feel safe in your presence. That's why the healthiest relationships don't come from pursuit, but from resonance. You don't chase them, you meet them. The same law applies to wealth. Money is energy. It flows where there is value, structure, and consistency. But most people chase it with the energy of scarcity, hustling from panic, comparing, forcing results, trying to get ahead. Yet wealth, like love, follows trust. It follows patience. It compounds when you stop grasping and start building. Think of reputation, skill, and network as seeds. You can't dig them up every day to see if they've grown. You nurture them, and then you let time and consistency do their quiet work. That's compounding. That's the opposite of over-pursuit. So what does the counterintuitive path look like? It looks like this. Lead with value, not validation. Show up to give, not to prove. Let your boundaries speak louder than your demands. And let patience, not panic, set your timeline. For the next few days, observe how you approach love and success. When you feel yourself chasing, pause. Ask, am I moving from abundance or from fear? If it's fear, stop. Recenter. Remind yourself that you are already enough. And act from that fullness. You'll notice something extraordinary. When you stop clinging, people and opportunities start finding you. The energy shifts. You become magnetic, because love and wealth are drawn to stability, to calm confidence, not chaos. Seneca said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." You don't chase luck. You prepare. You build quietly. You keep your energy clean. And when opportunity appears, you meet it, not from desperation, but readiness. That's the counterintuitive path. To stop pursuing what you lack and start embodying what you want. To realize that what you seek is not outside you. It's already forming around the energy you carry within. Want love? Become peace. Want wealth? Become valuable. Want freedom? Become disciplined. Everything else begins to align on its own timeline, because when you stop chasing and start radiating, you stop being a beggar of life and start being its partner. 10. The Woi principle. Watch, orient, allow, yield. The backwards law isn't an idea to admire. It's a rhythm to live by. And like all rhythms, it needs practice. A pattern that brings philosophy down into the pulse of daily life. That pattern can be remembered through 4 simple words: watch, orient, allow, yield. Together, they form what I call the Woi principle, the practical cycle of non-forcing. Let's start with watch. This is awareness, the first movement of freedom. You pause and observe before reacting. You become conscious of the tension that tries to pull you into panic or control. Watching is what breaks the trance. It's what turns chaos into information. When you watch without judgment, you can see life clearly enough to respond instead of react. Then comes orient. Once you've seen things as they are, you choose direction, not from fear, but from truth. You ask, what is the truest aim here? What matters most right now? Orientation keeps you from scattering your effort. It's how the Stoics acted with purpose, not rushing blindly, but aligning intention with what reality is actually offering in the moment. Next is allow. This is where most people hesitate, because allowing feels like losing control. But it isn't. It's cooperation. It's the moment you let go of resistance and make space for life to move. You stop forcing outcomes and start working with the current instead of against it. Allowing is not inaction. It's intelligent surrender. It's how clarity becomes collaboration between you and the world. Finally, yield. Yielding doesn't mean giving up. It means adapting. It's the art of bending without breaking, of letting what works carry you forward. Yielding is how you flow around obstacles instead of smashing into them. It's what water does when it meets rock. It doesn't fight. It finds a way. Yielding is the highest expression of strength because it's strength guided by wisdom. When you put these four together, watch, orient, allow, yield, you create a living cycle of presence. You stop reacting impulsively and start moving gracefully. Each moment becomes a small loop of awareness and response, refinement and flow. For the next few days, practice this rhythm consciously. When frustration rises, watch, notice the feeling. Then orient, remind yourself of what truly matters. Next, allow. Release your resistance and let the moment breathe. And finally, yield. Move with what's working, not against what's not. This is how philosophy becomes muscle memory. You stop needing to remind yourself to relax or let go. Your whole system starts to know how. The more you practice the way cycle, the more natural it becomes. You move through life like a skilled dancer, not pushing, not hesitating, just responding with perfect timing. The beauty of this principle is that it works anywhere, in conflict, in creation, in ambition, in loss. It's the blueprint for living in harmony with the flow of life, aware, adaptive, and quietly unstoppable. So when life feels heavy, remember this simple sequence. Watch, orient, allow, yield. Say it like a mantra. Live it like a rhythm. It's how you walk the backwards path, the path where effort becomes ease, and letting go becomes the most powerful thing you can do. 11. The mindset of the effortless manifestor. To live by the backwards law is to understand that the universe doesn't respond to frantic noise. It responds to clear signals. And those signals don't come from your words or even your plans. They come from your state. You manifest not by chasing, but by becoming. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. When your inner state is calm, steady, and full, life begins to match that vibration. It's not mystical. It's alignment. You are simply no longer contradicting yourself. Most people try to manifest from lack. They visualize what they want while simultaneously believing they don't have it. They act as if effort and intensity will convince life to hurry up. But that energy sends the opposite message. It says, "I'm incomplete until this arrives." And the universe, always honest, reflects back more waiting, more chasing, more incompleteness. The effortless manifestor knows better. They act from fullness, not shortage. They don't demand outcomes. They direct energy. They move with calm intensity, a quiet certainty that what they build, nurture, and embody will eventually take form. There's no panic in their motion, only purpose. Alan Watts called this the law of reversed effort. He said, "When you try to stay on the surface of the water, you sink, but when you try to sink, you float." The same applies to your dreams. The more you strain for them, the more resistance you create. The more you relax into faith, the more naturally life begins to cooperate. The effortless manifestor isn't passive. They're deeply active, but their actions are clean, uncluttered by fear or urgency. They build, they show up, they practice, they refine, but they don't obsess. They don't measure every hour. They know that fruit ripens in its season, not by force. The Stoics shared the same wisdom. Epictetus said, "Don't seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and life will flow well." This doesn't mean giving up on ambition. It means embodying patience. It means focusing on what's within your control, your attitude, your effort, your preparation, and letting outcomes reveal themselves in time. This mindset transforms how you live. You stop chasing validation. You stop comparing timelines. You stop measuring your worth by speed. You begin to enjoy the process because the process is where your power lives. You take bold action, but you do it with an open hand, not a clenched fist. For the next few days, try this subtle experiment. Whatever your goal is, financial, creative, emotional, act as if it's already unfolding. Carry yourself like the person who has already arrived. Make decisions from that energy. Speak from that calm assurance. Then, let go of needing to see proof right away. This isn't pretending, it's alignment. You're telling life through your behavior that you trust it, that you're available for the outcome, but not addicted to it. And life, seeing that trust, begins to meet you halfway. The effortless manifestor doesn't chase results. They create readiness. They don't seek signs. They become one. They don't beg for progress. They live it daily, patiently, consistently. You'll know you've entered this mindset when progress feels less like a struggle and more like a quiet unfolding. You'll feel less urgency and more flow. You'll stop needing to prove your path. You'll simply walk it. And perhaps most importantly, you'll realize that manifestation isn't about pulling things toward you. It's about removing what blocks them from coming. Doubt, fear, impatience, all dissolve when you remember. You don't need to force what's already meant for you. That's the true art of effortless manifestation. Calm intensity, long horizons, playful faith. The ability to act with clarity while trusting the mystery. To build, to move, to rest, all without losing your inner stillness. Because in the end, the universe doesn't respond to how loudly you demand. It responds to how deeply you believe. 12. The final key: surrender plus inspired action. There comes a moment, quiet but undeniable, when you realize that all the forcing, the striving, the constant effort to bend life to your will has been the very thing keeping you away from peace. You've been rowing upstream with blistered hands, forgetting that the river was already flowing in the right direction. Surrender isn't defeat. It's the beginning of wisdom. It's not giving up. It's giving over. It's releasing the illusion that you must control everything to be safe. When you finally let go, something inside you softens, and that softness reveals strength you didn't know you had. Alan Watts called surrender the art of letting life happen. He said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so simple, and yet so many people rush around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. Surrender ends that panic. It's the moment you remember that being is enough, that presence is participation. But surrender alone isn't the whole picture. Without action, surrender becomes stagnation. Without surrender, action becomes chaos. The balance is what transforms your life. Surrender plus inspired action. Surrender sets the stage. It's how you clear the noise, dissolve resistance, and align your energy with what's real. It opens space, mental, emotional, spiritual, for clarity to emerge. And once that clarity appears, you act, not from fear, not from pressure, but from inspiration, from that inner yes that doesn't shout, but hums. Inspired action feels different. It doesn't drain you, it animates you. It feels light, even when it's hard work. It flows because it's not forced. It arises naturally from stillness, like breath, like instinct. You don't chase the moment. You become the moment. The Stoics lived this way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, Align yourself with what nature has assigned to you, and you will never be hindered. That's what surrender means. Aligning, not abandoning. It's trusting the larger flow of life enough to stop fighting it, then taking the next clear step with calm conviction. Try it now in your own life. Think of one area where you've been pushing too hard, a dream, a relationship, a situation that feels stuck. Stop forcing. Let go of the need to control every detail. Take a breath and ask yourself, what's the next obvious inspired step? Then do only that. Not 10 steps ahead, just the one that feels true. When you combine surrender with inspired action, something almost magical happens. Effort starts to feel like ease. Progress starts to feel natural. You stop chasing timing because you become part of it. You realize that surrender isn't the end of effort. It's the purification of it. You still move, but your movements are guided. You still plan, but without panic. You still build, but from peace, not pressure. This is the final integration of the backwards law. Hold your vision lightly, keep your presence heavy. Move with the flow, not against it. Let go of the constant proving, pushing, forcing, and instead trust that the river already knows where it's going. Because the truth is, life was never asking you to fight it. It was asking you to join it, to move with it, dance with it, create with it. The harder you forced, the further you drifted. The moment you surrendered, you returned home. So breathe. Act when moved. Rest when needed. Trust the timing. Let the rhythm of life carry you, not as a passive passenger, but as an aware participant. And then, watch what happens. You'll notice that the things you were chasing begin to come naturally, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started trusting. That's the paradox. That's the backwards law. You stop forcing, and you start receiving.